So today's webinar, we're going to be interacting with 3 collaborative whiteboard spaces, so Padlet, Lino, and Baiboard. So I'll be pointing out some of the key features, things that I really like about each of those collaborative white spaces, and drawbacks of each. So each one has pluses and minuses, and it just depends on your teaching context how you want to use them. I'll also be giving a brief overview of each interface. We won't go into too much details because we only have 30 minutes today. I'll also, as we go through the webinar, be providing some lesson ideas for you. Okay. So just a quick overview for you. Padlet, Lino, and Baiboard, they're all very similar, but a few little key features that are different. Non-device specific, Padlet and Lino, yes. Baiboard, no. Unfortunately, Baiboard you can only use with iPads or MacBooks. So if you're working in foundations, this is great. If all your students have iPads, then Baiboard could be a really good option for you. User login required? No, for everything except for Lino. You do need to log in if you're going to do any attachments. Baiboard, no, you only need an email to start meetings, but if you're joining a meeting, you don't need anything at all, actually. App, no app for the Padlet. It is Web 2.0 only. Lino, yes, there's an app, but it's not necessary. You can use Safari on your iPad, or you can just use your laptop as well. Baiboard, yes, you need an app, whether you're on the MacBook or on the iPad. So it is app-only application, okay? Files, all of these file formats are available with some restrictions and some things that are okay, not okay, user-friendly with the iPads, not so much user-friendly. We'll go through those as we go through each of the systems. They're all free. There are premium services with the Padlet and the Lino, and I'll review those right now. Baiboard, 100% free, no premium service at all. So this is a little bit of an overview of some of the features that you get with the Padlet. $30 a year for an individual upgrade. You just get a few more themes, some custom domains. Truthfully, I've never needed or felt like I needed to upgrade, but if you are going to be using this regularly, it might be something you want to look into. Again, the Lino is about $30 a year for individual subscription, and a few things just taking away that advertisement, some email support, full screen navigation, just things like that. So, but so far for me, I've not needed the upgrade. So we're going to look at Padlet first and some of the key features. As I'm going to start talking about the key features, you yourself can go right into the Padlet board and start adding some, some comments or some posts. I'm just going to show you what the Padlet board looks like. It looks like that, and you can see some people have already added a few things from the last session. So go ahead and start that. I'll go back to the page with a link. When you get to this board, you just double tap anywhere on the board, and you can start adding your posts. Okay. So you can either you can do a QR code reading, put your iPad up with a QR code reader and scan that, or you can just put in the Padlet URL. So it's just padlet.com/I'mHereLearning. That's my username /example. So that's the name of the board. Your URLs will always have your username and then your unique name for the board afterwards. So it's really important to make sure your username is actually appropriate. Some of the key features I really like: layout options. With Padlet, you get 3 different layout options. You get a freeform, you get a grid, which is what I have happening on the board that you're playing with right now, and you get a streamline. So it comes in just as one after another in a straight line down the page. The other great thing is unique URL endings. So for example, I can make my username very easy and easy for the students to access, and then I just change the URL ending to group 1, group 2, or IELTS writing 1, or IELTS 1, IELTS 2. So you have lots of options for your URL endings. There's also some really good privacy options with Padlet. You can password protect your boards. You can make sure that they're not, they can't be found on the internet. So it gives you a little bit of privacy in our teaching context, which is important. As well, you have several export options. So the board doesn't need to stay in Padlet. You can export it into an Excel file, into a PDF, or as an image. Okay, so those are really important. Great for us when we want the students to be working on the Padlet, but maybe they don't have Wi-Fi access, and they can have it on a printout, or they can have it in another file format. So this is what an example Padlet board looks like, what you're working on right now. This is a real class example sent in by David, so thank you, David. And this is just an activity that he had his students complete. They had to import a photo that shows a preposition or place or of movement, and then write a sentence that explains it. So that's actually quite a good use for an English language class. It's a lot of time I use it for brainstorming. So we had a foundations orientation project that we're working on, and I was brainstorming with the participants, and we were putting out all of our ideas that we were thinking of for this project. When you first open up Padlet, you'll get this little dashboard. So you'll see your activity and you'll see what's been happening. And if you just tap on Padlets or new Padlet, then you can start adding a new board. Your blank Padlet board looks like this. Just be aware, there's that little arrow on the bottom right, and that reveals or hides the toolbar for you. So if you get this blank board and you don't know what to do, that's what you need to do. And then you can go back. If you tap on that little Padlet icon, it will bring you back to the home page. Be aware, this is the #1 mistake that people use when they first start using Padlet. This is what they do. They tap on that little plus button, thinking that that's how you add a post. Actually, no, that adds another Padlet board. So you don't want to tap on that plus button. You just want to double tap on your screen to add a post. So once people learn that, then they stop going for that instinctive plus button. And then the next thing is you can access all of your Padlet boards quite easily just by tapping on that little person icon. And this is where you can export or share your Padlet board. So there's lots of share options in social media, and you have your export options. Just note that when you export it to PDF, so I put an example of the PDF file there on the left, your URLs or your videos, photos won't work, okay? So it becomes like static. Your links will work in Excel sheet, however, so that's good. And your videos will actually become into a Padlet URL that you can click on, and it will open up into the video for you, which is really handy. Just note that export to Excel or CSV doesn't work on the iPad. You must do this on a laptop, okay? The little I gives you some information about the board, and sorry, the question mark just gives you a little FAQ. If you're lost and you don't know what to do, that's where you go. The most important thing on your Padlet board, however, for me, the most important thing is that little settings icon. And this is where you change all of those key features that you want to be using in your classroom. The first one is your basic information. So this is your title of the Padlet board, your description. This is where I like to put the instructions for the students. So the question I want them to answer, or what I want them to discuss, or what I want them to brainstorm. You can also add a small image to associate with the wall, but I typically don't. The next thing is you can change your wallpaper. Just be really careful about the wallpaper. You want to make it very clean, simple, and not distracting at all. I find that some of those, like that chessboard or the love trip, it's a little bit too much to handle. Okay. If you are seeing the key symbol, I just got a question in the chat room. The key symbol just means you're not logged in. If you log in with your username, you'll see the board that looks like mine. Okay, so if you tap on that, I believe it's just going to give you option to log into Padlet. I'd have to check and see because I'm logged in right now, so I can't see what the difference is. Okay, and okay, so the next thing is the layout. The layout is actually really important, and it's how you want your board to look and how you want to control your board. Free form, it just means that your students can put a post anywhere on the board, and that's great, but it can get messy and a little bit chaotic, but actually is really useful if you want them to organize the posts into different sections, maybe advantages, disadvantages, putting them into order, 1, 2, 3, 4, things like that. So free form is actually quite good. Also, you have a stream and also grid. Mine is in grid, so it keeps it very, very organized. You can always change this as well afterwards. So if you go into the Padlet board after you did a grid and you want your students to now organize it into a different, in a different way, you can actually change the board into freeform, and it will turn into a freeform. So for example, if I just go into the Padlet board here and I just tap on layout and I change, I want you to do it freeform, then the Padlet board will look like this. And then the students can just tap and they can move the objects into different areas. But I want to stay organized, so I'm just going to put it back into the grid form, like so. Okay. Okay. One key thing, and I'll talk about that in just a second, is if you do want your students to be able to move other people's posts, they have to be a collaborator or a moderator. So I'll talk about that in a second. But the next thing is the privacy, and this is where you can find the privacy protection options. So you can add it, make it private, where you can add people by email so they can access the Padlet. You can make it so that it's password protected, and you can change the password at any time. You can make it with, which is what I usually do, is a hidden link. So it's not being advertised. Nobody can Google search it. And you can send that link to your students, or you can make it totally public, which truthfully I've never done. When you're looking at the different options as well within each of those, you can choose to have your students view only, write, or they can moderate. And the moderate is actually really important if you want them to write or moderate. Writing means that they can write their own posts, and they can move their posts or edit their posts. If they are a moderator, then they can edit other people's posts and move other people's posts. Just a lesson idea for you. Something that really worked well for me in the past, I made them writers and I didn't allow them to be moderators, so that when they were having to put the little posts into advantages or disadvantages, then they had to actually communicate with each other. And you know, that quiet, shy student who sometimes didn't participate in the class had to participate because they had to move their posts. And so there was a forced kind of communication, and it made it a little bit more collaborative, not just on the iPad, but actually communicative as well. So just a little idea for you. You can also moderate posts yourself as a teacher. So at the very bottom, you can see that more privacy controls. And something else that I've done that was successful is challenge students to get as many posts on the board as possible. So you only accept posts that are correct. So for example, I did a grammar exercise where I wanted them to write a grammatically correct sentence, and I would only accept it if the sentence was correct. So there was a challenge of them trying to get as many posts as possible on the board. You can do things like trying to find facts in an article, or trying to get them to write a process of something and see if they can get their posts on the board. Just an idea. You can also get notifications in Padlet, but I usually turn this off. I get enough emails as it is, so don't need any more. And here is where you can change your URL. So even if your name is Example Padlet, my URL for this board is actually Example. So I make it very simple for the students to remember it, or just for the URL, and make it visually nice for the students as well. Okay, you can also copy the board. So if you are needing to have various groups in your class, just set up one board, set up all the layout, all the information that you need, and then just copy with posts. So if you have a starter post there for your students, or copy without posts. So that's a really good way to stay organized and save some time. You can also reuse your boards, so that if you have everything set up, you can use the same board with another class, and you can just clear all posts. But just be aware, they do give you nice little warnings. Once you clear all the posts, there's no way to get those posts back. So you might want to export it as an Excel or as a PDF first, and then clear all the posts and use that same board. So it just, again, saves you a little bit of time. A few drawbacks. There's not so many with Padlet, but there are a few. Moving posts can be tricky on the iPad if they include images, URLs, or videos. Once you tap one time, that image or URL will open. And so it's really it's all about getting the right knack for it, really. You need to remind students to double tap the post to edit. So initially they're like, "Miss, I can't edit." Because if they tap once, it opens the post, but it won't allow you to edit the post. So just double tap, and then you can edit the post. Can't add a PDF or other file mat from the iPad yet. Hopefully that will come in the future. no color coding the posts, no due dates available, and there's only one board, one page, and that's it. So if you have a lot of information, you might need to make several boards and then have several links to that information. So we go on to Lino. And again, Lino, I'm giving you two options. You can use the little shortened Google form there, or you can QR code, read, and get to the Lino board. Again, no login is necessary for you to participate in this board today. Great features with Lino. Some of the features that are lacking in Padlet are actually not lacking in Lino, and then some of the features that are lacking in Lino are available in Padlet. So again, it's just about how you want to use these boards in your classroom. So one of the great things I like in Lino is the different color stickies. So you can tell your students, please put all of the advantages in yellow and all of the disadvantages in blue. You can give groups different sticky colors. So I want group 1 as pink, group 2 as yellow, group 3 as blue. So I think I like the color stickies. You can add due dates to different posts. So it's great for collaboration on projects. So if the students are working on a project and they're deciding what needs to be done and who's going to do it and when the due date is, so they can add due dates. You can also highlight new stickies. So if you have a board that you're working on over a couple of classes and it's hard as you as a teacher to figure out who's added what and what's been newly added to the board, you can just tap on the highlight new stickies feature. And also one of the great things I like about Lino is that you can email posts to the Lino board or from the canvas. They call them canvases, not boards. But basically, if you'd like your students to work in a group and you have a note taker, they can send those notes to the board and they won't be able to see anybody else's notes or contributions until you share the board with everybody. So it's just another way of using these collaborative whiteboard spaces. Okay, when you first tap on it, you might see this screen. You have a choice. You can either use the app or you can tap close. I personally just tap close and use the Lino boards in Safari. But if you do choose to tap and use the app, it looks like this. It is a nicer looking board, truthfully, but with a little bit less functionality. So for example, you can't move the stickies when you're in the app. And you'll also notice at the bottom the add. And so I just use Lino in Safari. Okay, this is just an example board. And this was groups brainstorming, working together and sending their answers or their ideas to the board through an email. And this is what it comes up as. And as a teacher, I just moved them around into a nice order and made it look nice. Okay, the opening board looks like this. I think it's a little bit chaotic, and it's hard to find where is that create new canvas, but it is right there. And once you tap create new canvas, you'll see this page, and it's exactly the same. There's similar functionalities as the Padlet board. You put your name, you choose your background. You can even add your own image as the background, same in Padlet. Similar functionalities here as well. You just choose if you're going to use it for your own private use. Show stickies to everyone, or everyone may post stickies. You need to tap on that one if you want your students to contribute to this board. Also, once you do that, you'll get these details popping up. Personally, for me, just for privacy, we don't have a password option, but we do have an option to keep it off the public Canvas list. So I usually untick that so that it kind of keeps it a little bit more private between us. And here's the create a sticky via email as well. I also take off the notify me when somebody posted a sticky. Again, I think I get too many emails, so I usually take that off. Your blank board looks like this, quite easy to navigate through. You will need to just tap on that little arrow on the top right-hand side to get your Post-it or your sticky notes available. And on the board here, you'll see that you have 4 colors available. If you look at the very bottom, you'll see the little arrows, and you can drag in, slide in the arrow, or slide out so that you can make a little bit more space for yourself on the board. To add a sticky, all you need to do is tap on one of the 4 colors and a little message will pop up and you'll be able to add the sticky easily. Okay. If you're ever in trouble, you don't know what to do, if you just tap on that little question mark icon, you'll get a page that looks exactly like this. So it can go through and tell you what everything is and how to add stickies, to how to do everything, how to delete, how to take them away. So nice and easy to use. One issue that we have had in the past, and it's actually quite easy to get over, but it's hard to move the stickies sometimes. And that's just basically because you need to tap on something that, like an empty space on the sticky. If you tap on the image or you tap on the words, then you'll get what's happening here on my screen. But actually, if you just tap on that empty space, then it's quite easy to move the stickies around. Again, remember, in the app, you can't move the stickies. Again, if you tap on that eye, you can go back to that preference page, and you can also get your URL for the canvas. You'll notice that the URLs are not as nice as the Padlet URL, so I do recommend sending those to your students through email or the Blackboard or some other method to get your students linked into this or into the Lino board. Okay, few drawbacks of Lino. So a lot of very similar functionality as the Padlet, but one drawback is you do need to manually refresh the board to see the new posts coming in. Padlet, it will just pop up and appear for you. Attachments don't work on the iPad, and if you're doing this on the laptops, they do need, or on a Galaxy, they do need to log in. They can't do that as a non-registered user. Videos are URLs, they're not files, and they're not available in the app, so you can't attach videos in the app. And no grid or organization options. So they can get a little bit messy, and you as a teacher, you need to be on top of the board and moving things around. I typically like to do that on my laptop and have the laptop on the whiteboard behind me, and then I can easily click and move the stickies as they're being added to the board. Really downside for me as well is there's no export option. The only thing is screenshots that you can do, and the board is actually quite big, so you have to navigate through the board and take individual screenshots of all the different sections of the board. So that's unfortunate that there's no export option. Last board for today is the Baiboard. And actually, out of the 3 boards, I really like the Baiboard the most. I think it's a lot of really great features. The downside is that it is for iPads or MacBooks only. So if you are in Baiboard, you'll have this little option at the very top of your home screen called Join Meet. And this is the meeting ID that you can join. You just tap in the meeting ID. You can also add a password to any of your boards to make it a little bit more secure. Unfortunately, if you're on the laptop, you can go to this link and see if it works, but I do need to be in the Baiboard, and I need to enable a meeting to be working, so it's not so, and you cannot add or interact with the board. You can just view the board. So it might be okay if you're viewing the board on the laptop, on the whiteboard, but it's not so great for interacting with the board. But one key feature that I really like is multiple pages. Love multiple pages. You don't have to have various Padlet boards or Lino boards. You have many pages within one board. As well, you have many writing input options. For example, you can do handwriting, you can do text, you can actually even put in symbols or icons. So there's lots of different options there. You also have presentation mode. So you or one of the students can take on presentation mode, and that means that you're controlling what everybody is seeing on their iPads. So you're flipping through the different boards, and the students can't control or interact with the board at that time. It's just you, the teacher, or even if one of the students is doing a presentation, then they're controlling what's on each one of the screens on the iPads, which I think is quite a cool feature. There's also a chat option. This is in the iPad only, not in the MacBook, but there is a chat option and an actual voice option. It's in beta form right now, but it does work, and it's quite cool. The chat option is so if the students are working on one board together and they're in different places in the campus, or they're at home working on the board, they can still chat with each other while working on the board. And the last thing, I actually put 5 for Baiboards instead of just 4, is the nearby meets. So there's no need to actually send the students out the meeting ID. The students will actually see it down at the very bottom. So you'll see that the nearby meets is there. So you just need to make unique names so that the students can recognize, and the students can create their own meetings as well. And they can say Fatima's group or Ahmed's class, whichever. And they just tap on that. And so there is no sending emails. There is no having them check what the meeting ID is. That's their way of checking with the nearby meetings. It does need to be nearby because it is using a Bluetooth integration. So unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to see the nearby meetings unless you're sitting near me and at the Dubai Men's campus. Your board kind of looks like this. So you have at the very top all your features that you can interact with. You can add text, you can erase, you can use the freehand pen, the highlighter, and the shapes. So you can see everything that I've so far added to the board. And if you're in the live board, you'll see what others have added today as well. Example board that I've used in the past. So this is just planning a trip to South Africa, and you can see how you can add maps, images, and you can actually draw directly on the images or on the maps as well. Okay, this is how your board starts out, your blank board. You can keep the board private again by putting in a password, or you can keep it private on your iPad only so that you're not sharing it with anyone. And that just means that you haven't started the meeting. So you can work on your board when you're offline. You don't need Wi-Fi connection to work on your board. It's all saved into your app. But if you do want to start your meeting, you just tap on that little top right icon and you say start meeting. And this is also where you can change your board name. Okay, and when you do start a meeting, you do need to provide an email address, but no passwords, you don't need to log in, nothing. And if you've started a meeting before, it'll just remember what your email was the last time you started a meeting. Few options. Once you tap on your meeting icon again, you will see these options. You can invite participants. You can save as board, so that means it's an offline board that you can work on at any time. You can set your password. You can also do a chat, and you can also do snapshots, which are kind of like screenshots of the board. So sharing option is very limited. Unfortunately, there's no social media connections, just email or iMessage or clipboard. That's it. But in a classroom, you typically don't need to send it because they'll be able to see the meetings on their iPad. So that's good. This is what the chat room looks like. Very, very easy to use. And you also have a hold to talk. So the students they don't need to type. They can just hold and talk, and their message will appear for them. In the settings, you have your nickname is there. Then just a few other options for grid alignments and showing the grid and snapping the grid. And you also have that web sharing option. So if you want to show the board on the overhead and you're using a laptop, you would turn on the web sharing and use the URL that's provided there. Okay, you also have these export options. So you don't have an Excel export option, but you do have a PDF export options, and you have various, and you can do an image as well, and various ways to share that with people. And then finally, you have the import photos. So you can add images, but you cannot add videos. So this is not available, but you can add PDFs, and it's connected to your Dropbox, your Google Drive, your photo album, quite a few different options there. PDFs are really great to import because you can actually annotate the PDF. It's the only board that you can annotate a PDF. So if you have even math activities or a math worksheet that you want your students to work on together, this would be a great option to have that happen. I do have a PDF in the working Baiboard, so you can see what it looks like. I have added some annotations to it. Okay, other file formats, and you'll see those in the example Baiboard. You can add them, but they don't work. So other file formats like numbers page, numbers file, or keynote presentation, or even a Word document, you can't add. It just becomes static, so won't work. And again, right there is your live voice conferencing. And it is in beta form, but does work, which is quite good. So you can just talk to your partner while you're working on the board together. Just one thing about Baiboard, important to recognize, it's one of the first times or a few times where actually the app is more powerful than the app that's made for the MacBook. So this app really was made for the iPad. So talking with each other, only available on the iPad. Adding icons, only available on the iPad. So you get a lot more functionality on the iPad than you do on the MacBook, which is, I find, quite interesting. So this is where you can go to the next page, add a page, or you can tap on that little 4 icons in the bottom left, and you can see all of your pages and scroll through them quickly. And then you have the different options at the top, and even have options, which one thing I really like as a teacher, I can lock certain items so that the students can't delete them by accident, or they can't move that item around. So just something to think about for your classes. And your icon library, again, only available in the iPad. The Baiboard does have a few drawbacks. One of the big ones is it's only available on iPads and MacBooks, but that's fine if you're teaching in the foundation program, or if you know that all of your students have iPads. It's a very powerful app to use. It is an app, so they do need an Apple account and access to the App Store to download this app. It is free though. Can't add various file formats yet, but I suspect that that might come in the future. Can't annotate PDF on the MacBook. Like I mentioned, the app is actually on the iPad is more powerful than the app on the MacBook. And you just need to be careful about the tool that you choose right at the top of the board before tapping the board. So if you forget to choose and you had used the eraser, you can start erasing some of your items on the board by accident, which has happened with a few of the students that I've used this with. But the undo option is there, so the students just need to tap undo, and they get that really quickly. Okay, so those are quick overview. If anybody has any questions, you can just unmute yourself, or you can put a question in the chat room. That's no problem. As well, I will be sending an email later today with the survey link. If you can, please take a moment to fill in the survey just to let us know which topics to cover in the future. So our time this semester is almost done. We have one more scheduled for June, but we are looking at scheduling more webinars for the next semester. So just give me an email with those, or please fill in the survey and let us know as well.
Miss Sarah, I like
Yes.
this Baiboard, but there is no option here that I can use it on the laptop.
No.
I'm currently using it on iPad.
Yeah, it's
even for viewing only. For example, if I'm doing it, demonstrating to the students from my iPad, but the students can't watch it or see it through their laptops.
No, they can see it through the laptops, but again, if that's through that link that you can give to the students, that web link. But again, what's the point of them viewing it on their laptop and you doing it? It really is, Baiboard really is an iPad app that you want to use with the iPad.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No, people are shaking their heads, ready for the weekend. Okay, so, well, thank you very much for attending. I will be sending out an email with the link for the recorded video. Also, just to remind you about the iTunes U webinar course, where you can then find the PDF file for this. If you can't get access to the iTunes U course, just let me know and I can send you the file through email as well. Okay? So have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you later.